We are here in Miami as part of our Florida trip and very excited to be joined by Cathy Dos Santos from the Transit Alliance Miami, TAM for short. We're very excited to be with you here today. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. It's super excited to have you all here.
So to kick us off, can you just explain what TAM's role is here in Miami and what you do here?
Yes. So Transit Alliance Miami, we're a 501c3 nonprofit advocating for a Miami built for people, not cars. We certainly have a lot of work to do. We focus on doing community engagement, data and research, and policy and planning advocacy to further along safer streets for all users. And really the reason why we do all this is we know we need to free Miami from traffic, and we believe that the path to do so is to empower the people of Miami to influence transit decisions. We've been doing this work for about 10 years. I've been with the organization since 2023, and it's really niche. It's also something that I think it's desperately needed because at the end of the day, we're here to help Miami build the civic muscle. Because every single transportation decision honestly is political, and there are people who are in the room making those decisions, and there's a lot of reasons as to why things look the way they look.
Totally.
And that we're missing certain things that we're missing.
Honestly, I like that you say transit's very political, because we have this discussion a lot. Transit touches every aspect of city life more than I think what people realize. When we started on this show, we didn't realize we'd be talking so much about housing and employment and inequality and everything else that just all gets wrapped into and touches transit.
And I think one that is really, really, and it touches all of those, but I think to the similar point, like affordability. In Miami, cost of living is insane. And the Miami Herald, which is our local, one of our big local publications, covered last year that on average it is more costly in Miami to own a car than in other metro cities or metro areas, and it's almost $15,000 annually, all costs combined. And so we have so many people that live here that are working 1, 2, 3 part-time jobs that work in the service industry that they're earning $35,000 a year. So they're either taking transit because they have no other alternative, and we're working here to ensure that it's the best alternative for them, or they're making really tough financial decisions, and all that without also sitting in traffic for so many hours of the day.
And being able to free up, enabling a household to go car light or something like that. It's hey, okay, right now we have to have 2 cars because the transit in our area is too hard to make it to work or whatever it may be, or the biking in this part of town may be expensive. I have personal experience when I moved in with my partner. We went from each of us having a car living in Austin to moving to a part of town where we were on a consistent bus line. There were decent bike lanes in the area. We got rid of a car and we saved something like $7,000 a year, which was huge for us. It's that freed up so much ability for us to be able to relax a little bit and also be able to go do more things that we wanted to do with the money versus having it all go towards a car payment.
And everything can be a little bit of a trade-off. We have a bit of an issue here where we do have a lot of housing and decent amount of density coming up near transit stations. The issue is that the housing tends to be a little bit more luxury priced, not as much affordable oftentimes. At the same time, I think a lot of people are starting to look at the full math, and they're like, okay, well, this is what my rent payment is. What if I actually also plan out what my car payments for the year with gas and everything, especially with the way the gas is looking right now.
Right.
And I think a lot of young people are starting to make that choice. It's also, we would like for it to be less of a hard choice, or for it to have less trade-offs perhaps, because right now the trade-off is a lot of it is time. On average, every Miami trip happening, if you're taking in a car versus on transit, the transit will take you almost twice as long. And that's that's another tax on people in a sense.
I want to ask you about a campaign that I know you're all working on right now, which is the Streets for People campaign. That is something that you all are working on at the moment. Can you talk about what your goals are there and what the campaign is?
Yes. The goal is to move forward 20 mobility improvement projects around to connect Miami's communities. What are 20 mobility improvement projects? Well, honestly, it can look like anything, but we really are focusing on what is the low-hanging fruit that we can move forward as soon as possible, because people in Miami really feel stuck. We individually get this all the time. It's oh my God, how do you bike places? And the reality is that oftentimes we're taking our lives into our own hands. At the same time, we have an uptick of people using e-bikes or e-scooters to get around because the traffic is getting so bad. We have huge swaths of communities that like want more walkability in the neighborhoods. I think a lot of about elderly folks that are they want the opportunity to be outside and feel safe in the environment. I think of the growing families that like want to be able to like walk around with a stroller, and a curb cut is not there to like help them out with that. So it can get a little technical in terms of like what those improvements could be. But we really are crowdsourcing from our community. We're asking them, send us a video or send us an email at streets@transitalliance.miami. People think it's .com or .Miami. And tell us about the improvement in your neighborhood that would make it easier to access the places you want to go. Whether it's getting to the bus stop or to the train station, or that like little bit that missing sidewalk that would get you to a park. One specific example, there's parents from Jose Marti High School in Hialeah. Their kids' high school is literally in front of another school, which is an elementary school, and parents have kids in both schools. So I pick up and drop off, they're sort of like bouncing around. And if you look at the map in Hialeah, you tend to have really, really long blocks. And this is one of those. So you have like a Publix, a supermarket on the top, around the middle of the entire street block, you have the two schools. And then you still have a big chunk before you get to like the next crosswalk. And there's only crosswalks on either side. There used to be a mid-block crosswalk on the street. It got repaved in like 2008, 2009, something like that. And boom, it disappeared. Meanwhile, every day, parents and kids are jaywalking constantly. And it's honestly a matter of time before somebody gets hit and hopefully, knock on wood, not the case, but somebody dies.
Right.
And, the parents have received all sorts of like walkarounds from like, oh, it's a city that manages the road, or it's the county that manages the road, like, oh, they have to approve it. But they have been told all the way to, we should educate the parents and the children to use the crosswalks. Yeah. Like, you try telling a high schooler who hasn't developed their full frontal lobe, like, hey, you gotta walk 10 more minutes.
Way out and around. Yeah.
10 more minutes to, like...
So that the cars can get through the intersection faster.
It's insanity. Also, I'm sorry, it's rude.
It's the same concept as like a desire path, like when you see in a park and you build a sidewalk where people walk. You should do the same thing on a street. If you see there's a lot of jaywalking in one place, add a pedestrian crossing.
Especially when like in this case, there are schools there, and the consequence is literally potentially a young person dying needlessly.
And it's, if you even think about like the patterns of the traffic, like why are the cars there to begin with? They're there to pick up and drop off kids. They're there because it's that time of the day. So how about we prioritize the people that we're all trying to move in the first place, as opposed to just like the 2-ton vehicle, SUV, whatever.
Absolutely.
And the reality is that is happening all over. These parents are amazing and tenacious, and they want to get this done, and that's what we're here to help them do, and sort of like try to navigate all this. Sort of also realizing like we have worked closely because of the Better Bus Network, because of other projects with people from the county. We have worked on all types of projects around when municipalities want to do safety improvements with the municipality. So we think of ourselves as connectors, and that's a lot of like what is missing, or like even a translator, where that
trying to bridge the gap between the people and those agencies. I'm curious, how has some of the different municipalities and groups involved here responded to this campaign?
Some folks have have reached out to us and said like, we think this is a great initiative. Like, we look forward to working with you. I think most of them probably haven't quite heard about it yet. And that's okay. They will soon. But from the public, it has been a great sort of input. Lots of comments on the video itself. Of course, everybody's always like, we need a train going to X, Y, and Z. And I'm
Everyone, we want that too. Yes.
Everybody wants a train.
We gotta get there.
But honestly, that's what this is about. It's the baby steps to get to that. And that's where like the idea of the politicization of transit is intricate. We actually also have an event this very week on Saturday where the event is called Depoliticizing Transit. And funnily enough, I did get a reply that I want to like sort of shout out because they were correct. And it's like, transit is political, and you said it, and that is completely correct. Transit is political, so it's not inherently that you want to depoliticize it, and that is correct. I think, however, there is a stigma to what is political, There certainly is a bipartisanship that obviously plays into it, and it's all the way from the federal level to our local government. Yet at the end of the day, people want to move, and if they had better options that are more efficient than having to pay $15,000 per car, and being still stuck in traffic, and being part of what causes traffic, because some folks forget that. Then people would probably make better choices. But it's a long pipeline, right? From like this idea to actually getting funded to actually building it. At the end of the day, it's a long chain of decision making, and we have to be ready to like sort of take action at every level. And we're a tiny nonprofit. We're 3 people, and I get told this all the time, that like, wow, you're tackling a really big problem, and like people think that we're even bigger than we are. And I mean that's a great feeling.
And it's a compliment. Yeah, they're like, they don't know what you're doing.
I take it as a compliment. But at the same time, it's like, where can we be most impactful and effective, also given the political, economic climate and all the things.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think there's a lot of similarities from where we started this in Texas to in Florida, especially on the state level. But you also bring up a good point. You don't want to necessarily depoliticize it, but we've had interviews and conversations with politicians, especially in the Texas State House, who have said that transit really is a great vehicle for bipartisanship and bringing people together, because it can hit the needs of both sides. You want to provide access for lower income communities and more connectivity in your cities. On a more conservative side, I think pushing the narrative of freedom of mobility is such a powerful narrative that they should and can lean into. Economic development, economic connectivity. There's all of this stuff that should be working on both sides.
And trying to get the messaging to the point where it's like, it can be appealing to everyone. It doesn't it is political, but it doesn't have to be only on like one, everyone can take their wins with transit.
There is a divide. The Tallahassee every day is making decisions that affect our ability to provide good transit in Miami-Dade. And to be quite honest, I don't like, it's also, people that even don't represent Miami-Dade making these decisions for us. I don't think most of these politicians have ever been, God forbid, a bus, but like not even a train.
Right, on the train. Yep.
And they have to hear from their community members all over. So that's where we're also thinking about, how can we work with. There's a couple up and coming organizations that do similar work, or at least have a similar focus across Florida.
We met some folks in Orlando from Sunrise Movement in Orlando.
Awesome.
They were like, they were excited to hear we were meeting with you as well. So
and there's folks in St. Pete and in Tampa. There's folks in Broward, Better Streets Broward. So it's definitely more concentrated in the bigger Florida metro areas. But it has to be a statewide movement, and the same way that it has to be a national movement, right? At the end of the day, we're just trying to, the way I say it is I'm trying to save people's lives, because the deaths on the road truly are absolutely atrocious, and we are way too comfortable with the numbers. And I'm trying to provide that not only freedom of mobility, but of economic mobility also, because it is such a big chunk of your budget, and it really limits. I mean, people are I think it's honestly getting so bad. It is reaching a point where people are like, okay, well, how far am I willing to go for cheaper housing if I then may have to spend more on my car payment or on my vehicle and in traffic and all these things.
I think that's a good spot to transition a little bit into the Better Bus Network that is here in Miami. I know that you all did some advocacy work leading into that. I know we talked previously before this. It sounds like some of the pieces of it were able to live up to what you were hoping, but parts of it were not.
Yeah.
I guess, can you talk about some of the implementation of that, how it's been going? I know that a lot of this relates to, for folks who are regular viewers of our show, the kind of conversation between coverage versus frequency and trying to balance that with the limited resources that all of these agencies sort of are dealing with right now.
Limited resources, definitely. It's sort of the underlying factor, right? So we actually have behind us parts of the original map. Our role with the Better Bus Network is that this conversation really started with community members back in 2016, 2017, where our transit system had been just consistently disinvested in cuts upon cuts, and then the cut happened, ridership decreased, so then it faced further cuts and whatnot. And we sort of put a limited halt to cuts in 2016 with our Stop the Cuts campaign, and so we were able to like keep more of the transit funding that would have been previously like taken away. But it really started some hard conversations, honestly, like with some folks that work for the department, but mostly with community members around like, realistically, what can we do? Because it just continues to spiral, and it needs to prove that it can do better, apparently, so that our elected officials are willing to invest in it, right? So we sort of asked this question of like, if it's increasing ridership like the goal then? And we landed at the point that it was. We need to grow. We need to show growth in order to like be able to draw down
to get that extra money
funding.
And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot of like the service level issues that we still see today were present then, but they were coupled also with a coverage model. So you have buses being pulled from the routes that come once every hour, maybe in that coverage model, getting pulled for areas that were more frequent, or you have riders. A lot more riders being left behind in the areas where there's more density and more use and demand for transit, in order to provide a service that, for all that it's great at reaching people, or could be great at reaching people, is only moving a handful of people at a time.
Maybe once an hour, which is unreliable for those people.
And then so that has an effect on the ridership. So then it's only like maybe 2 to 3, 4 people on a bus. So there's always trade-offs with transportation. I think that that's something that you are deeply aware of. And we said, well, what if we're very like clear on these trade-offs to the public, and we just ask them? And we ask them over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Not that we're just gonna keep having touch points, but like that we ask a whole lot of Miami.
Right.
What is it that you
want? Different
want?
neighborhoods, all that. Yeah.
What is it that you want from your transit system? So we started doing this process, and again, in this sort of like in between of like asking for permission, or more so asking for forgiveness and permission. But we had some conversations with folks from Jared Walker and Associates, and we were definitely inspired by a lot of the work that they had been doing around the country. And again, from like the community conversation. So we just started to ask the question, and we were getting some answers. It's like, okay, well, what do you want from your transit system? What would make you more likely to take transit? We got to a point where like, okay, well, we need actual buy-in from not only the department, but from the mayor's office at the time, who was Mayor Jimenez, who was now a congressman for Florida. And we did end up getting his buy-in. We also got the buy-in from the private sector, where it was actually a joint venture that the mayor's office put in some funding. The private sector put in some funding because there was this recognition that, if we were able to provide better service and move more people in Miami-Dade, again, the goal is increasing ridership, that would have a positive effect in terms of access to jobs and access to economic mobility for our population. So what we did, we essentially gave the simplest breakdown of what coverage versus high frequency models could be, and we asked folks, hey, like these are the trade-offs. Like for a coverage model, you have to usually wait more for your bus, but you have to walk less. For the high ridership, you may have to walk more, and but your wait time will be shorter. And we asked a series of questions. We asked people to rank priorities. Like there was like also multiple levels to this, and overall there was like 3 salient points. People's number one priorities. And we did this before we did the Better Bus Network, and then we went back and checked after we did the Better Bus Network, and the priorities remained the same across age groups, across zip codes, race, ethnicity. People want to get to where they're going fast. No brainer. Yep. People want to wait less for their bus. Yep. Yes, people also would like for that bus access to be closer, but we're like further down in terms of the priorities. Right. And I think it was particularly interesting when it came to like also looking at the age range, where even then, I mean, the walk can be tough, but waiting in the sun, in the heat, can also be deadly. Yes. Yep. So the Better Bus Network was definitely a push towards a high frequency model for Miami-Dade. It went into implementation. It got adopted unanimously in 2020. Great timing for the vote. And it did what it did to all of our transit systems, where not only the ridership plummeted, but like, they lost a lot of bus operators. Come 2023, they finally were like close to the operator numbers that they felt they needed to launch. So we then went back and did the Better Bus Network community engagement that like helped design the network was the biggest outreach effort to Miami-Dade around transportation ever done. For this, we were actually like fully working with the county, so it was a little bit different. But we activated, oh my goodness, I trained like 400 volunteers from the county to have them at a bunch of all the stations that we could physically cover and like actually reach people to let them know about the changes.
At the transit stations, which is so important to like meet
Absolutely.
people right where they're at.
The ridership had a bounce. There's been a lot of service issues that, we believe has also brought it down. I will also say that, with complaints, because people are going to complain.
Especially with any change too.
Yeah.
Like,
change is always so hard. You can like, even if it's an improvement, again, you're still working within a closed circuit. So like you're going to have to be moving parts from one side or the other. So there's always, we knew we were providing a net benefit of that 250,000 more trips could be done with a service that was frequent. But there are trade-offs, and there are gaps. So there's always a little bit of like a concern as to how those gaps get addressed. And again, this is also why we are now pushing for Streets for People. I think we would have less of a tough time addressing those gaps if the pedestrian and cycling infrastructure were there to protect people.
Makes it easier to get to the bus stop that might be a little bit further away, and
it helped if we just planted some trees.
Right.
And it wasn't so hot outside.
Yes. For folks too, you mentioned Jarrett Walker a couple times. Yeah. I've mentioned him on the show a couple times recently. If you're watching the show and you have not read the book Human Transit, highly recommended. Definitely go read it, and there will be a very in-depth discussions about all of the stuff that we just covered right here. So wanted to say that. But yesterday we just recorded our Miami using only public transit video. We went all over the city. Honestly, I didn't have super high expectations, and the Metro Rail was great. We had mostly positive experiences with buses. Again, that's only in one day, so it's hard to see. We did see a couple areas where there could be room for improvement for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But for the most part, all connections we made were great. The ridership was high. Having somebody at each of the stations who was also there, kind of monitoring things, but also to help, like we saw security helping people navigate
asking questions, and
that was also really nice to see.
One area that I was very excited, and I still am excited about it, but the new BRT system down at the south end of the line essentially acts as a Metro Rail extension, but with buses in this dedicated right-of-way with amazing infrastructure along the whole thing, air conditioning at stations and indoor spaces. And I know we had talked previously that there is only signal priority in like one direction in the morning time, but holy cow, did we get stopped at like every single light going both directions, and not just for like a minute. It was, some of them, I was recording and I was like 5 minutes sitting there. I'm curious if we just had a rough experience with it in terms of that, or is that something that has been kind of an issue with it so far?
What I will say is that generally it is much easier to note and hear about the bad trips, right?
Yeah, yes.
Because what do you want from your transit?
And I hope that was what it was in our end.
What you really want from your public transit is to not notice anything, for it to just happen, and you're just like, okay, that went how it's supposed to go, and that is like the best you can hope for. The BRT, and like we were sort of talking about this before, but we're kind of
we talked about this BRT project at length in last week's episode, so feel free to go back and take a listen to hear what we have to think. If you want to hear Cathy's thoughts on the subject, it's included in our extended cut for YouTube members and on Patreon.
I'm curious if folks want to get involved with Transit Alliance Miami, how can they do so? How can they support your work here?
Oh my God, love to hear that. So the easiest way is 100% to join our newsletter, which you will find at transitalliance.miami. If you're ready to take the next step for the low value of $2.25, you can join our Patreon. It is also the same cost as a transit ticket, at least for now, in Miami-Dade. So every single dollar supports, but I think most importantly also come out and send us your submission for Streets for People. Tell us what could be better in your community. What is that missing crosswalk? What is that bus stop that doesn't have a shelter that needs one? And I don't have the power to wave a magic wand, but I think together we can make that magic happen.
Totally. That $2.25 a month is like half a cup of coffee at your coffee shop. So if you can support them, go and do it. Yeah, less than half. Yeah. So that's all that to say is that's not very much. So if you can help.
That's like the ventanita colada price now.
Yeah.
For those folks who are listening, can you sort of describe your relationship to transit before you got involved with Transit Alliance and what brought you to this position that you're in?
I think I had a very roundabout way of getting into it. I'm originally from Venezuela, but I've been in Miami, and Miami was like my introduction to the United States since 2010. And when I first moved here, the entire time I went to high school, I lived in the suburbs. I was completely subject to my parents, my mom specifically, having to drive me everywhere. I've always liked cycling, but she was like, "No, you're gonna die on the road." She wouldn't let me go to the library. That was literally a 5-minute bike ride down the street. And honestly, I felt very trapped, and I think it made me resent Miami a lot. And I loved the people that I had met here. I loved the friends that I was making. I loved my school. I loved. I love the people, but I felt very trapped. Went off to college at University of Florida, which is also not, a metropolis, but it had a reliable bus system. And it was also very catered to the students. So that was my first introduction to taking the bus in the United States. I had taken public transportation traveling. My family is also originally from Europe. So I had experienced some of that over there. In Minnesota, I had taken the bus. I don't know that I would recommend it at this point. I was also not from Caracas. So Caracas had a better transit system back in the day, but I can't say for now. But once I came back to Miami, and I graduated in 2020, and not the best time to graduate, to be looking for jobs, to be looking for the next step in life. But I came back to Miami, and in part because I was so dead set on leaving, I refused to get a car because I was I don't want to saddle myself with this big expense, not knowing when I'm going to be going next. So I started taking transit. I would borrow my parents' car sometimes. I got a job that I had to go to downtown for, and it was me sitting in traffic on the Dolphin Expressway on the 836, and seeing the 836 express bus that goes on the shoulder pass me by. I knew it existed, and I wanted to take it, but during COVID it had shut down for a little bit, so I couldn't. And I was like, oh, I guess it's back. I'll start taking that. And it was just the biggest domino effect that you could ever picture, because 2020 was 6 years ago, and I don't own a car. I bike, ride transit. I am notorious for putting my bike on transit every day, and I know every single time that an elevator is out because I feel it. But to me, transit allowed me to see a different alternative, and no, it wasn't always great. I got into this work because I was a disgruntled transit user, but I think it gave me hope. It allowed me to see a lot more of Miami that I don't think I would have seen before from behind a steering wheel. It's honestly even as a mental exercise, you tell me oh, we were coming from here and then we got off here, and think, oh, that was a 36.
Yeah.
Now it's almost fun. And what I do want to say is I'm into transit for what it can do for people, because I know a lot of people in our space, trains are really cool. Buses are really cool. All that stuff is really cool. The intricacies, the logistics, and sometimes I even get drawn in for that. At the end of the day, I somehow have made my life talking to people. Now it's specifically talking about how to improve our mobility as a community to people, to different, sometimes it's elected officials, sometimes it's the person on the bus stop. And I really think that obviously transit is a vehicle, but it's so much more than that. It really is opportunity. It's growth as a region. I am absolutely convinced it's the future. And I think it's just a question of how quickly we want to step into that.
That's excellent.
Yeah. Thank you, Cathy, so much for taking the time. We really appreciated talking with you today. For those of you watching, if you have not subscribed already, please consider doing so. It helps get the show out to new people. Leave a comment. If you have questions for Cathy, we'll be sure to send some along. I'm sure she'd be willing to answer some of them for you all. If you want to support Cathy's Patreon as well for the organization here, we'll make sure that's linked in the description too. So with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching and enjoy the rest of your Transit Tangents Tuesday.